everybody, welcome back to Real Housewives of Potomac Season 10, Episode 10. We start this episode off by seeing Giselle pull up. She's going to try to purchase herself a new G-Wagon. And as she talks to the dealer, we start to see that, Wendy's going to come join her for the, ride and test drive as well. Now, as Wendy gets there, we see Wendy is, talking with Giselle, talking about Stacey and how, she thinks everybody's just being a little bit too hard on her. But I kind of agree with Giselle in this moment. If she's bringing it on herself, why do you keep lying about everything and then switching up? That's kind of putting yourself, you're putting a target on yourself. You're making women not trust you, which also leads to them not liking you for who you are, Stacey. Now, as the discussion continues to go on, we see both of the ladies hop in the G-Wagon. They're going to test drive it out. Giselle is girl putting 20 on 10. Calm down with that car, with that man in the back, scared to ride with you women. And not only that, they talk about Karen and her well-being while she's still in prison, because we all know soon she's going to get out later on, in the season, as well as talking about Monique and how they both do need to meet up and have that talk that they need to have if Monique is going to come around all of the ladies. And, Monique's relationship and Wendy's relationship as well, because they never really had one because of the issue that happened, I think, about 5 seasons ago. And, Wendy never really got to know Monique for who she really was. Now, in this next scene, we see Stacey and her friend AJ. They're getting some drinks and just relaxing, and they're starting to talk about Stacey's event. Now, as these two start to discuss the event, Stacey also fills him in on how, the ladies aren't really liking her. She's not, the group is just not really feeling her right now. And Stacey, that's all your fault. Why do you have to lie about everything? If you kept everything up front, there would be no reason to lie, and there would be no reason for any of the women to dislike you. Stacey also tells, AJ about how Ashley and Kieran are going around saying that, she tried to talk to Chris Samuels and how she's spreading false rumors about Monique or just trashing Monique behind the scenes on the phone to Chris Samuels. And, of course, Stacey saying that's not the case. That's not what I'm doing. And I kind of believe Stacey on this one because, Cherie and I think it's Cookie, I think they're the ones that's doing it because they don't like Monique. Stacey has no reason not to like Monique. So I don't know why Stacey needs to run back and tell Chris anything other than, hey, I met up with your ex-wife and we're being cool because we're now in the circle together. Now, after Stacey begins to explain that stuff, AJ says the same thing I'm always saying. Y'all old asses need to stop it. Y'all too old, too grown, and too established to be acting like a bunch of high school girls with the he say, she say stuff and just the back and forth. That doesn't make any sense. And then at the end of the conversation, we see Stacey talk about Tia and how Tia did get a bit upset, a bit loud about, of course, just, crossing her boundaries and don't take her accent for weakness. And Stacey, you talking about you non-confrontational, but girl, I'm going to need you to show some of that Detroit attitude and get up in her. Like, I don't know who you think you're talking to, but you talk to everybody else but me with that. Like, I know Stacey trying to be prim and proper, but she needs to drop the QVC voice and bring up that Detroit attitude and let them know, don't mess with me and don't play with me like that. Now, in this next scene, we see Tia. She's handling business with her real estate business, and she's discussing how she's going to get a team, to better help her with all of her real estate stuff. Now, after the meeting, we see Tia, reach out to Stacey to kind of discuss what happened at Giselle's event, how it got out of hand. And of course, they do want to have a sit down and talk about it. Stacey even did, I forgot to mention this, but Stacey did mention that she has sent out invitations and nobody has really responded if they're coming or not, so she doesn't know. But Tia actually says, she still wants to support because she still thinks that, Stacey is, a good person. But, Stacey, I think you just need to stop lying. Nobody wants to be around a constant liar. Nobody wants all of that to be in a friendship. And after the scene where you see Tia and Stacey, talk and kind of just get it over with, you also get to see in this next scene, Ashley and Josh hang out on their date. We get to see Josh and Ashley have a little fun. But, of course, I feel like she's just wasting Josh's time. Josh is not the man that she wants. He's just a little fun to her. But I think she should have just been upfront. We know Ashley is used to messing with, the older rich guys, the guys that are more established, the guys that have just a little bit more money than Josh. And Josh is not that guy. He's younger than her one. But at the same time, he doesn't have the money or the status that Ashley would want, which is not wrong for Ashley to want out of life. But at the same time, you dated this man for, a year or over a year. You also did a dating show. You pretty much just wasted his time. and you could have just been upfront with him from the beginning. Now, after we get to see Ashley and her little play toy, finish the date and kind of sort of just, end what they have going on. In this next scene, we get to see Giselle and Monique finally meet up to have that talk that they have that has been long overdue. So of course we see Giselle enter first, and of course a little while after we see Monique also enter. And as both the ladies sit down, we see both of them in good spirits, open minds, open hearts to try to hear one another out. And they even make jokes about what happened in the past, all the arguments they've had, which was funny. And, what went wrong, what went left with the relationships. Now, as the conversation goes on, we hear Monique tell her side, what brought her to those decisions, why she made those decisions. And when she started to go through her divorce with Chris, she also, it made her look back on, her trauma, her past, and, which is bringing us to her now, which is why she's, gotten to know herself, handled her issues to, bring her to this peaceful Monique that we see now. Monique also talks about the issues that she had with Giselle. And yeah, some of her past may have brought her to being kind of aggressive with Giselle, but we all understand, but let's make this clear that, Giselle, you did kind of come off as a hater. You're trying to say that Monique came off as a hater, but from what I remember, once Monique started talking about all her properties and what she had and, pretty much introducing herself to you, you kind of took offense to that. And I still don't understand why you took offense because, this woman had the money to be where she's at. So, we don't understand where your issue came from with Monique. I also like that, Monique did not absolve Giselle of anything, and Giselle actually took accountability for most of the stuff that she's done. But, it's good to see them match the differences and, both be able to talk out how they both played a part in the relationship that they have now. And then it's also good to see them both come to terms and kind of dead the situation and be able to start anew, because Monique is going to be around and hopefully she does come back the next season. And now after we see the two talk, finally have that, final conversation, we then get to Greg, and Angel and Kierna's mother. We see them all at the jewelry store, and Greg is picking out an engagement ring for Kierna. Now, this scene wasn't too long, but we did get to see them have fun picking out a ring for Kierna, what they thought Kierna would want. And I'm happy to see that Greg is finally taking the plunge. I do know he did feel a little bit of pressure because he was in a relationship like that before. And, he kind of was just questioning it, which does happen. Like, yeah, second guess if you really want to do this or not. However, though, we do see that Kierna's mom is a bit more happy. She doesn't feel like her daughter's being led on, just being dragged through nothing but years of a relationship and no real outcome of it. And it's nice to see that, they all came to an agreement with the ring. Now, after the scene with, Greg picking out an engagement ring, we get to see Ashley and her sister show up to a store because Ashley's sister is going off to college. She's going to University of Maryland. Congratulations to her again. And, of course, Ashley's being big sister, taking care of her sister because of issues. Well, not issues, but because of the living situation with her sister. She always wants to be there for her sister. Now, of course, during this conversation, her sister does get emotional because, they didn't have the best of parents. Both parents did not make the correct decisions in order to bring both the girls up in a well environment. And it has caused some traumatic responses, into the girls. So that way, when they grow up, they're going to have some type of trauma from growing up with their parents. And it's just going to affect their adulthood as they get older. And of course, we see it in Ashley. Ashley, she's going after the $1 million man, the men with the big bucks, so she would never know what, never have to live another struggle and to be able to take the burden of taking care of her family because obviously, her mom did not do well. And now in this next thing, we make our way over to Wendy and Eddie, and they are doing their pop-up for the brand of Happy Eddie, his marijuana business. And of course, as Wendy is talking about, Eddie's brand and how he named a strain after her called the Nutty Professor, we then get to hear about recap of how Stacy didn't want Wendy to be at her event because it would be a conflict of interest. And I kind of agree with Wendy. She's already stolen enough information for me. So do I mind about not being invited? No. And now in the same scene, we also get to see Stacy arrive at, a shop where she's also holding her event, to introduce her line, which is called Shio. And as we're getting a better look of her brand, one of the producers that's filming her asks her, do you own the actual company, or do you own this? And she's, of course, she said a whole lot of nothing, just talking about her partnership. So within that answer, no, she does not fully own it. She has a partnership. Now, as we're continuing to watch this scene, of course, they're going to go back and forth between different cast members and their brands. And I'm sorry, Wendy's is looking, Eddie's is looking a lot better. He has 21 items for sale, so he does have a bit more, way more than what Stacey's putting out with just her 2 flavors with her gummies. But, it's exciting to see both cast members start their own business, even though, yes, Stacey definitely did copy Happy Eddie. But now we get to see some of the ladies start to show up to Stacey's event. And of course, Giselle says she don't want to. We have Kierna. Of course, Kierna's not going to show up. She didn't want to go. And, we have Angel that's going to, have Kierna's back, and Angel's not going to go either. But to see the few ladies that did show up, that's a good start to a support system. All right, you guys, I feel like this episode is just dragging, but we see Ashley show up to Stacey's event. Stacey's definitely, feeling some type of way because Ashley actually pulled up, showed out because Stacey attended the Pride event. And, we're now getting to see that Stacey has been wearing a lot of the past outfits from the other ladies, and I'm not sure if the designer is just putting her in this to make her look bad, or if she's actually picking out these outfits herself because they actually wore it. But we do get to see that flashback. Then we also get to see Stacey pull Ashley to the side because, she wants to have a talk on how to move forward from that event from Giselle. Then, so of course, as the conversation goes on, it gets just a little bit escalated. Ashley doesn't want Stacey to start lying about stuff. Stacey's continue to apologizing, and it's just both back and forth. Ashley, I really don't. I get it. You want to be her friend. You don't want your friends to lie. Okay, fine, that's cool. But if that's what she is, then I don't understand, because you didn't have a problem with me. It was doing it. So why not just accept Stacey for the liar that she is? We all know that Stacey's going to keep up a lie because she has to keep up some type of false reality about herself. To be honest, Ashley, other than the pride thing, what else do you have going on? Is that why you're so invested in Stacey's business? Like, let it go. If Monique does not care, and okay, Giselle don't like her. Okay, fine. So now what? Like, let it go. It's not that serious. So both ladies agreed to disagree. Of course, it caused a scene at the event, but I'm glad they once again agreed to disagree and let it go. And now after that scene, we see the ladies go to the back. They go to a private room so they can continue to, I guess, talk about the event and enjoy Stacey. But, as they sit down, Ashley is just, confessing that, for the past 10 years of her being in this group, being a part of this franchise, that they, hold each other to the fire because they want everybody to be as authentic as they possibly can be so that they can feel comfortable around each other. But I also feel like, Ashley, you have lied a time or two, especially about that ex-husband of yours. So don't see her and say that you was as authentic as you possibly could be. Nah, baby, you really weren't. You definitely did some past lying and stuff like that. It's just now that you can focus the target on someone else. And as that conversation comes to an end, we then get to see Tia and Stacey have their moment because, Tia has a problem with Stacey's lying as well. And I don't think, Stacey, I don't think you needed to lie in that moment. You did not have to say that, he's going out of town or anything like that. You could have just said, you know what, I'm not comfortable having him around. Wendy and her husband, we're not comfortable doing that yet. So I see where Tia's coming from. Nobody wants to, who lies about that? That's just dumb, but as this conversation goes on, we see Tia kind of get irritated because, Stacey is going around the bush instead of just actually straight on saying what she lied about, what she lied for. And once again, Stacey, this is not making you look good to the group at all. This is why you can't have individual friendships with the ladies, because you'll lie in one instance, and then when you get around another group of people, or for instance, like you were on the phone, you lied to Wendy. And even in this conversation, Tia also brings up how individually you wanted her to have your back blindly, but that's not how Tia rolls. That's not how Tia's going to function. She's going to get a feel of you, and if she can't trust you, she's not going to. And as the conversation continues to get very heated, because, we see Stacey trying to just shut the entire conversation down because it's looking like she's caught in a few more lies. She then kicks out Tia, which, okay, now you done ruined another friendship, Stacey. And, after this episode, that's the end. So like, comment, share, subscribe. Thanks. Bye.